plotting a couple of points. Let's look at first the point, let's see, A here on this next one, which is 2, negative 2. Well, on this one, remember we read our x first. The positive 2 tells us we're going to go to the right 2 first. And then the negative 2 tells us up or down. Well, it's negative, so that's going to mean down 2. So we're going to go to the right 2 and then down 2. And the A out in front is just telling us what to label our point, that we want to label it with an A. Now let's look at point B. B is the point negative 4, positive 3. Well, the negative 4 that's on the x side first means we're going to go left this time to the negatives, left to negative 4. The 3, though, is positive this time, so we're going to go up 3. So we went left 4 to go to the negatives, but then up 3 to get to a positive y value. And the B out in front means they want us to go ahead and label that with a B. Now let's take a look at point C. Point C is a little bit different because they want us to do the negative 1.5 first. So that means that we're going to be partway in between. Negative 1.5 means we're between negative 1 and negative 2. Well, negative 1 is here, negative 2 is here, so we'll be in the middle and negative 1.5. The question is, what about that negative 5 over 2? Well, if you're not sure what that is, use your calculator. Take negative 5 divided by 2, and your calculator will tell you that that's negative 2.5. So that means we're going to go down 1, 2, 3, and so negative 2 and negative 3 are here. Negative 2.5 means you'd be right in the middle. So we're going to be right in between the middle of negative 1 and negative 2 on the x's, and right in between negative 2 and negative 3 on the y's, which will put us right in the middle of a box. And we'll label that with a C. Let's try another one. Let's look at point D. D is 3, 5. So that one would tell us to go to the right, because it's positive, 3. And then up 5, because it's positive as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we go to the right 3 and then up 5. And we'll label that this last time with the letter D. And that way we have all of our points plotted. Let's take a look at this next example. In the next example, they give us a point and they're asking if it's a solution to some kind of equation. Well, the only way to know if a point is a solution is to plug it in and see if we get a true statement. So what we'll do is we'll take this point that they're giving us, this negative 1, negative 5, and plug it into the equation. So I've got my equation, which is y equals 5x. And I'm going to plug in my point. Now remember, my point has an x value of whatever comes first, which is here a negative 1. So we'll plug that in for our x of negative 1. Remember, when you plug anything in, we put parentheses around it. And then we'll plug in our y value, which is negative 5. Here, our y value is negative 5, so we'll replace that y value with a negative 5. And let's see what that gives us. Well, on the left-hand side, we have the negative 5, and on the right-hand side, we have a 5, and then a parentheses, negative 1. Well, remember that 5 with parentheses, negative 1, means that we're multiplying 5 and negative 1, which is just, what is 5 times negative 1? Well, that's just negative 5. So is this a true statement? Does negative 5 equal negative 5? Absolutely. What does that mean? It means that this point is a solution of this equation. Yes. We'll find out this later, but that means that this equation, which happens to be a line, we'll learn more about y later. What it means about this point is that this point is actually on the line. That's what it means for it to be a solution. So whenever we draw this graph for this line, it'll have the point negative 1, negative 5 on it. That's what this means. In this next group of examples, we want to look at creating a table of what's called ordered pairs. In an example like this, they will give us an equation that will have x's and y's. Then in this one, they've actually given us a couple of x's and a y. So when they give us the x, they're asking us to find the matching y that goes with it. And if they give us a y, then we're looking for the x that goes with it, because points always have an x and a y. So let's take a look at this first one. This first one, we have an x of 0. So we'll plug in an x of 0. So remember, when we replace our x's with 0, we got to put it with parentheses around it, which gives us 2 times 0, which is 0, minus our y equals 4. So we end up with negative y equals 4. But then we still have to get rid of the negative sign. Well, remember, what's hidden out with that negative sign is a hidden 1, so that means we actually have a negative 1 there. So to get rid of that negative 1, we'll divide both sides by a negative 1. That'll get rid of the 1 and the negative sign, which gives me that y equals, well, 4 divided by negative 1 is negative 4. So what this means is when we plugged in an x value of 0, we got out a y value of negative 4. That's actually a point, 0, negative 4. Well, the 0 on the point means that we're not going left or right, but the negative 4 means we will go down 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's where our point will be. So we'll be down here at 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. They want 2 other points here. Let's try another point. In the next point, they have given us 4 for x. So we got to start out with the same equation all over again. We'll do it over here on the left-hand side. We've got 2x minus y equals 4. Except for this time, we're replacing the x with a 4. So we'll replace that x with a 4. And again, do not forget your parentheses when you make that swap. So it'll be parentheses 4 and around that. So the first thing that we'll do is our multiplication here. 2 times 4, which is 8. We still have our minus y next to it, equals 4. Be careful, you cannot combine the 8 and the y because they're not like terms. However, I can solve for y by getting rid of the 8. How do I get rid of the 8? Well, I can subtract 8 from both sides. What that does is gets me, be careful, there is still a negative in front of my y. And on the right-hand side now, I've got the 4 minus 8, which is going to give me a negative 4. Now the question is, how do I get rid of that negative? Remember, it's a negative 1 out in front of that y. And if it's a negative 1 out in front of that y, then we're going to divide both sides by a negative 1. That'll get rid of our 1 and our negative sign all at once, which will get me y equals, well, negative 4 divided by negative 1 is going to give me a positive 4. So the question is, what does this mean? Well, we got a y value of 4 when we plugged in an x value of 4. So that gives us a point of 4, 4. So to actually graph the point, we're going to go to the right 4, because it's positive 4, and then we'll go up another 4 because that 4 is also positive, and that will be our second point. Now they wanted us to do 3 points here, so let's take a look. On the third point, they wanted us to plug in 2, but notice this time it's a y. So let's take a look at now plugging in a y. We'll still start with the same equation though. We'll do it over here off to the right here. We've got 2x minus y equals 4. And we're replacing the y with a 2. So we'll replace the y with a 2. So what that gives us then is 2x minus 2 equals 4. So how do we solve this equation? Well, the first thing that we can do is just go ahead and get the x by itself by adding 2 to both sides. And that will get me, let's see, a 2x equals 6. Lastly, what we can do is get the x by itself by dividing both sides by 2, which will get me an x equals 3. So what this means is when we plug in a y value of 2, we get an x value of 3. Be careful when you actually write out your point. X has to come first, and we just found it. So 3 will come first, and then we have plugged in a y value of 2. So let's plot that point. We'll plot the point 3, which is over to the right 3, and then 2 up 2. So now we have all 3 points together, and look, they look like they're forming a line, which is exactly what we are going to do. So we can just go ahead and play connect the dots to draw our line. But we actually go past our dots and put little arrows on the ends. The reason being is we want to indicate that our line is going to continue on forever, indefinitely, in both directions. Now we drew our line using 3 points. That's actually kind of overkill. All we actually need to actually graph a line is 2 points. That's the bare minimum. A lot of people do like to do 3 points though, because then if one of the points is off, you know you've made a mistake somewhere. But 2 points is really all you need. And when you actually graph something in MyMathLab, that's all they'll let you use is 2 points. You'll select the little line tool and you'll plot 2 points, and then it will go ahead and draw your line in for you.